I wanted to do a quick video to explain how I was able to conquer the entire map on the hardest difficulty setting with only the 5 starting families. So it involves using the trading post, and when you do a trade, all you need to do is import a good, set a limit that you want to have imported. You don't even need a worker in the post to actually have that order fulfilled. There's 2 different ways to trade with the trading post. If you have it on the King's Road, you'll have wandering merchants that will randomly stop by and drop off a good or two. Or you can open a direct trade route, which means they will send an actual horse and cart to trade 50 items at a time. And they come from the edge of the map, go to your trading post, and then go back to the little trade point over here, and that completes the trade route. So that's pretty much all you need to know. Let me explain how it works. You'll notice again, this trading post has no workers in it. I have a bunch of goods set to import up to a certain limit, 250 in this case. So like this mail armor, I'd already sold out of all my goods, so I'm going to switch this back to import. I'm going to import 250 of these, and as long as you have enough money, they will come by, drop off the goods, and then go back to their little trade posts, and then repeat indefinitely. Now, what ends up happening, if you buy a certain volume of a good, that import price or export price will adjust based on that volume. Generally, anywhere from 100 to 150 is usually enough to trigger it to flip. It's probably less than that, but that's the minimum purchase orders that I was doing each month. And that number updates every month at the beginning of the month. So as soon as you see that pop-up that says new mercenaries came, or you hear the bell ringing, or you see the month switch over, that's when you know the pricing will have updated. Now the UI, actually, I'll show you in a second, the UI does not update real time. Sometimes you have to actually do it manually. So let's let this run. You'll see a bunch of traders are going to come up. They're going to buy stuff or drop it off based on what I have set up. And again, there's nobody in this trading post. And the reason I have it set up right here is because this is the shortest possible route to where they're actually coming from. My original town was over here. They have to travel from this blue dot all the way up to your trade post, which originally was right here, and then travel back to the edge of the map. They were able to do maybe 2 trips a month, maybe 3 if the timing was lucky. By moving the trading post to the edge of the map, I increased that to about 5 trips a month, sometimes 6, depending on if the trade carts run into each other or not. If it's a clean flow, usually it's a little bit faster. But essentially what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm manipulating the market. So I'm going to buy a bunch of these at regular price. And then on the update for the month, you're going to see, once the new month rolls around, we'll pause it and we'll see what the prices do. So you can see mail armor is regular price. Some of these are regular price, some of these are not. And then down here, you can see I already manipulated the market for plate armor. I'm able to buy it at 3 gold per item. Normally, these go for 24. So let's let this roll to the end of the month. Actually, these ones, they will not actually export. So I'm going to switch this over to import. And then you can probably tell what I'm doing here. Essentially, I'm inflating the market and deflating it, but I'm making sure I have enough inventory to go from the bottom all the way to the top at the maximum. There we go. So new mercenaries just popped up. That's the end of the month. Or you can just watch the month and see when it rolls over. So you'll notice some of these prices don't look like they're any different. You have to be careful with this because this, as I mentioned, the UI is slow to update, or it doesn't update unless you switch. So as soon as I switch this over to export, you'll notice that the price changed. So the price, it's not that the price didn't change, it's that the UI did not update quick enough to show you. So if you watch the traders, they will actually continue to sell or export at that price that you had it at, even though this doesn't. It'll show 8, but then you'll be trading at 16, or it'll show 8 and you'll trade at 1. So you have to make sure at the end of the month, make sure you pause, switch your exports and imports, and you can see right here we bought all these for 8. I'm going to go ahead and switch this around and sell them down to 0 at 16. So we're going to double our money, 245 items. This one we were importing for 4. Now we're going to export for 11. Not a great deal, but also not terrible. And then the pole arms, we're going to export. We bought at 8. We're going to sell for 12. We make 4 on each of those. And then this one, we have 597 that we bought at 3 gold each. We're going to export it for 12. Actually, that's a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. Usually this shoots up to 48, but it's probably because when I reloaded it reset or something. But let's let it run 1 month and then we'll come back and see what these prices have done again. So it's very important. I wanted to clarify one thing. The reason I put the trade post as close to the edge of the map as possible is because as soon as you get the price to fluctuate, you need to be able to fulfill orders fast enough to take advantage of that spread that you have. If you're in the middle of the map and you can only get your trader to come by once per month, that means you can only do 1 trade per month. So basically a stack of 50 once. So if you're making 15 gold you'd be making 15 times 50, essentially. However, if you go to the edge of the map, you're making 15 times 5. So you can trade 5 times the volume you can on the edge of the map than you can in the middle of the map. So this is really important if you want to make a ton of money. In fact, at one point, I was making upwards of 42,000 in a single month. And granted, it's not always that way because you have to import one month and then export the other month. So technically, you cut that in half. But really, you can make 42 grand in a single month. So you can see we've sold through all of our product. It's still October. Yeah, we have a couple plate armor, but those will probably go as well. There we go. We sold the last of our plate armor. It is October, just about to turn into November. All right, new mercenary companies. So that's the queue. We got November. And again, you will notice that these prices don't change until I switch it. So I'm going to switch it back to import. Now you can see how cheaply we can buy these things. Everything is worth a single gold. So I'm going to buy 250 of each. And then down here, same thing. I'm going to go to import and we can once again buy them for 3. As soon as you switch it, they will flip their pricing. So if you see somebody that's pulling up to your trading post, you can pause it and change the trade while they're en route. They don't actually fulfill the order from the post. They get a text message or whatever, and then they know that the new pricing has changed. So they update based on what you're doing. The other thing I was going to tell you, if you plan on doing this, do not open too many trade routes. You'll notice I have a bunch of food trade routes. So this is 5 extra trade routes. I have 1 trade route for the roof tiles, and then these 4 in here. So that's a lot of trade routes. The reason I did the food is because I needed to donate a bunch of food to be able to take over land. You need the influence to actually claim the enemy's territory. And so I was importing a couple thousand food a month and then just donating it to the church through a tithe so that I could get all the influence and take over the rest of the map. So normally, if you're just trying to make a bunch of money, I wouldn't recommend doing this because it's going to clog up your trade post. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a bunch of extra trade routes now. And you'll notice they will start to bump into each other and eventually they'll grind to a halt. Sometimes they can even grind to a halt for an entire month. I'm just going to open up as many trade routes as possible. And if you weren't at the edge of the map, it might actually be okay, but because we're at the edge of the map, everything's compacted. Now, if you want to get that 32,000 a month, this is how you do it. You have to import and export every single item on this page, and you could probably do even more if you did all the other pages. I didn't really want to do that because it's kind of annoying having to micromanage it, but... And you can see right here, they're having a traffic jam. So this is exactly what I was talking about. So I'm going to pause it right now just so we can show you the price fluctuations. But if you do too much in one region, this is what's going to happen. So do not do that. I would probably suggest keeping your trade routes to maybe 6 at most, and that'll be really smooth. You could probably get away with a few more. Like before we had 7 food, 1 tile, plus the 4 over here, that's 12. And they would bump into each other a decent amount. If you were to, let's say, not do that many trade routes and maybe keep it to 6 to 8, you would never have any traffic jams. They would be very smooth and you could trade those items that you are actually opening a trade route for very quickly. So let's go back and look at the pricing. We imported up to 250 of a bunch of these things. We can export and you can see as soon as I switch, it's going to flip the price. And we just basically made on each of these items, we're going from 1 gold to 16 or 1 gold to 15. That's a 15 or 16 times increase in profit. And then this one is the big one though, from 3 to 48. So you're making 45 gold per item. It's insane. And then obviously we started to do it with some of these. We only did 50 items. I don't think the price will change for 50 though. Oh, it does actually. It goes up by 1. So 50 is all you need to get the first level and then probably 100 to get the second level. So it'll go up mildly or it'll go up severely. So the 1 arrow is a mild, 2 arrows is severe, and it goes both ways, either buying and selling. So again, we can export these down to 0. But the problem is, if you have too many trade routes, you'll see what happens. They just kind of bump into each other. They will eventually go through. No, they're just staring at each other. It'll eventually break, and then you'll get a little bit of flow, and then it'll happen again. So this is going to happen on repeat, maybe once every month and a half, maybe 2 months, something like that. Yeah, they're starting to go now. But it basically grinds your whole thing to a halt, and you have to restart the game, or just don't trade in that region, because it's just not working. So you can see they're starting to get their trades off. You're not going to be able to get the volume, though, because you have too many trade routes. So I fully expect this to be patched out by the next one. So take advantage of it while it's here. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.